Hi everyone, it's Priscilla here, and today I'm going to share with you how I investigated my students' readiness for online learning. So to begin with, I'll talk about the idea behind the survey, and then I'll move on to the planning, as well as the strategies on how I obtained feedback from my students. To get started with the survey, one of the important things I had to do was to begin with some research. Firstly, I had to decide which platform I will be using for the survey form. The ones I'm familiar with are SurveyMonkey and Google Forms, and I opted to go with Google Forms. Another thing that I had to do was to look at some sample surveys. So the easiest way for me to do this was to Google it online and look at the available literature. If you look long and hard enough, you may find some quite extensive surveys on this topic. However, for my intentions, I decided to be very selective, and because of this, I had to do away with what I perceive as unnecessary information. For example, some surveys require that students provide answers regarding their internet bandwidth. In my case, when I first saw such a question, I myself was not sure about how to respond to it because I didn't know what my bandwidth was. And I was pretty sure that the bandwidth changes depending on where I work from or which gadget or equipment I used. There were also questions on the internet providers that the students use. These I thought were also information that I do not necessarily need, as the coverage of, let's say, Digi, Maxis, or Cellcom are also dependent on the location, whether you are in the city, town area, or even in more remote locations. So, for these reasons, I've decided to do away with such questions. Another thing I had to do was to customize and relate the survey questions to my course. This is so that the students can see the survey questions in the context that you want them to. For example, one of the questions I asked was, currently, you have been assigned tasks and assignment for the UB00702 course on a weekly basis. What do you think of this arrangement? The next item to think about is, how are you going to use the information from the survey? Will it be for course information and course preparation use only? Or will it be for research use? In my case, it was actually used for both purposes. In terms of planning for the survey form, there are also a few things that can be done. First, make it easy for the students to access and to answer. So for these reasons, I went mainly with objective type of questions, with options provided in drop-down menu. I thought this will make it easier for the students to answer the questions and therefore motivate them to answer the next question. I restricted myself to only 3 open-ended survey questions at the end of the form. It is also important to set a duration for the feedback for the survey, whether it's 3 days, 1 week, or even 2 weeks. Therefore, setting a deadline is highly recommended for students to know when you expect it to be completed. Apart from that, make sure that the survey form works. First of all, check the form settings to ensure that it is made available to everyone, and avoid the need to log in or use a password to access the survey, apart from just clicking and getting on with the answers. Do remember to try out the links yourself to make sure that they work. One of the best ways to find out if your form works is to get someone to answer the survey for you. What I did was to ask a friend to try it out and inform me how much time was needed to answer those questions. I was also able to ask her if there were any questions that were unclear and therefore needed some modification or editing. Next, I'm going to talk about what were the strategies that I used to obtain more feedback from the students. First of all, during the launch of the form, I decided to send the Google Form link directly via WhatsApp as I connected with all of my students through WhatsApp groups since the beginning of the semester. This was even before the movement control order was imposed. I thought that this is the easier mode compared to asking them to sign into Smart V3 or opening their emails to retrieve the link. So in my case, I provided them with a one-click access or the direct link to the survey form. You can do this on your own preferred platform, of course. It is also equally important to provide the students with clear instructions in the Google form. Make sure you state the objective, the estimated time to complete the survey, and the length of the survey. Next, in order to improve the response rate, which is quite tedious but had to be done, I sent out several reminders both individually and to the groups as a whole. I had to follow up with students who have not responded by texting them personally. So what I did was I had a list of students and simply tick off the names of those who have responded to the survey and actually hunted down those who had not. So one word of advice is that you have to be persistent with your follow-ups. On this slide, you will see the Google form that I had created for the students' readiness for e-learning for my course. As you can see here, I've invited the students to answer the Google form, and I explained to them that this is mainly to plan for the online lessons for the course, which is UB 00702 English for Occupational Purposes. I also indicated that it will take approximately 10 minutes of their time. This is based on the feedback from the trial done previously. And I also mentioned that the information is needed to provide them with the additional support or alternative arrangements for e-learning. In this next slide, you will see the response rate for the survey I conducted. The initial response 4 days after sending out the link was 78 responses. This I would consider as quite good, as I have more than half of the students responding to the questionnaire in less than a week's time. At the end of day 4, the initial deadline, I sent out a group reminder through WhatsApp to inform the students that I was still expecting some responses from them, and that the form is still available for those who have not responded within the deadline. And by day 11, I had about 110 respondents, which was pretty good. Nevertheless, I decided to send out individual reminders to those who have not done so, and by day 15, I received 116 responses to the survey form. This is about 2 weeks after the launch of the form. For good measure, I sent out a final reminder on day 15 and received a total of 118 responses by the end of the survey period. As you can see, this involved a few rounds of reminders, and it wasn't just a one go and end all. Realistically, we know that not all students are particularly fond of answering survey questions, and we also have to be mindful that some students may have limited access to the internet when they are away from the campus. Like in my case, one of the last respondents for the survey was actually a student who went back to China and had restricted access to all Google platforms. As for the final results, all I had to do was to clean up the data, mainly to eliminate duplicates. So in total, for the final submission, I received 118 responses, minus 6 of the duplicates, and I end up with a total of 112 responses out of 112 students. So this gives me a response rate of 100%, which is great in my case as my persistence paid off. I believe that's all I'm going to share for this session. I hope to see you in campus or online soon. Thank you.